You're listening to The Picture Show, a Mach 5 Network podcast. And here are your hosts, Jason Zimmerman and Jacob Lee.
Hey, what's up, fellow movie lovers? Welcome to The Picture Show conversation series where we chat with people who make the movies that we love to watch. Don't forget, if you're a new listener to The Picture Show, first off, thank you for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to the show in iTunes or via the podcast app on your iPhone or iPad, or on Stitcher Radio on iOS and Android. And as always, remember, what we do here at The Picture Show is we dissect and discuss new movies in theaters, streaming movies, movie news, coming attractions, and of course, we have great conversations with people who make these wonderful movies. My name is Jason Zimmerman, and I am joined here by my co-host, Jacob Lee. What is up?
How's it going, everybody? I am super excited to be here with our interview for the Picture Show podcast and ready to get going and talking about Guardians of the Galaxy.
Absolutely. Guardians of the Galaxy is such a big movie coming out right now. I mean, there is promotions everywhere. They just had the red carpet premiere event. So much great stuff. So much great buzz. Really looking forward to talk to our guest today. So I think without further delay, let's bring her in. Our guest this week, screenwriter Nicole Perlman, has won the Tribeca Film Festival's Sloan Grant for Science and Film for her screenplay Challenger. She was named one of Variety magazine's top 10 writers to watch. She was listed in the playlist 10 Screenwriters on the Rise in 2013. She has written for Fox 2000, Universal Studios, National Geographic Films, Disney Studios, Cirque du Soleil Films, and 20th Century Fox. And of course, she is screenwriter for Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, which opens in theaters in the U.S. on August 1st. We are joined by Nicole Perlman. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come on with us today. Last night was the red carpet premiere of Guardians of the Galaxy. So how much fun was that? It looked like a massive event on the live stream for sure.
It was incredibly large. I had seen photos of them setting up, but actually pulling up to this mass of people and the noise and the paparazzi, it was pretty cool. And all the screams of the crowd when the cast arrived was pretty epic.
How was it to see the movie at the premiere last night?
Well, it was really amazing because I had seen early cuts, but on small screening in small screening rooms. I hadn't seen it in the Dolby Theater, which is where they have the Oscars. They have this huge theater with multiple levels, and everyone the sound and the projection was perfect. The 3D looks amazing. It was an overwhelming experience and really, really fun. It was great to be there, too, surrounded by the cast and crew and just have everybody really enjoying the process of watching the fruits of their labor be projected. It was wonderful.
So let's start with now, take us back and tell people how you first got involved with writing Guardians of the Galaxy.
Sure. So in 2009, actually, it goes back quite a ways, I was writing a lot of science and history-based screenplays. These were kind of my thing. And I did a biopic on Neil Armstrong for Universal, and my Challenger screenplay was about the physicist Richard Feynman. And so I loved these kinds of movies, but I also wanted to go into a larger world of movies that were fun and popcorn and action adventure. And I wanted to sort of prove that I could do it, because I think there's not a lot of women who are doing that out there, and I wanted to have my shot at it. So I met with Marvel, and they wanted me to join this writers program that they were starting up, where they took 5 writers, and we each got an office, and we got to choose from a list of probably a dozen properties that were lesser known Marvel properties, which project we might want to be, in charge of and write specifically and exclusively for a year or two. And so I chose Guardians of the Galaxy, which, compared to some of the other properties that were on that list, was very much not a well-known property. And it was, wacky. And some of my friends were like, why would you choose the property with the talking raccoon? But I think that it was just such a great, fun science fiction epic that, and I really loved the tone of the comics too, which was the 2008 reboot was very irreverent and tongue-in-cheek and sarcastic, and I just loved it. So I chose that and spent 2 years in the program, just exclusively developing that storyline and choosing which characters and what, the whole arc of the movie was going to be, and writing different permutations of the story. And then they brought me back in to do another draft, and they decided they wanted to make the movie. So that was the story of how I got involved.
And so were you then familiar with Guardians of the Galaxy before this, or did you, after you had talked with Marvel, did you say, this looks cool, or were you already reading Guardians of the Galaxy beforehand?
I wasn't. I don't think a lot of people were aware of it. It's definitely not a huge Marvel property. So it was a big risk for Marvel to make a movie where there was no real awareness in the public of who these characters were. And since the movie is very much about the origin story of the team as opposed to any particular one or two characters, it's kind of a lot to bring everybody up to speed on a lot of different characters in it, while also having them enjoy the ride and have the spectacle and just have a really fun summer movie. So it was. I was not familiar with the comics, but I got very familiar with them over 2.5 years. The first 8 weeks that I was at Marvel, all I did was read comic books. It was the best job ever. I was bringing home stacks of comic books every night, and my husband was like, "You are the worst. You have the best job in the universe." Yeah, pretty much.
Exactly.
So it was great.
Did you do any other writing for any other of the Marvel properties while you were working on this, or was it strictly 100% Guardians of the Galaxy?
I would say it was, I don't know, 75% Guardians of the Galaxy, but I did write on Thor, the original Thor, because they were shooting it, and they were about to shoot. They were in pre-production, and they wanted to have a female writer come in and do a pass on Jane's character, on Natalie Portman's character, and that was really fun for me because I am a huge geeky person. I love space and physics, and so Kenneth Branagh really thought I would bring something to the character. So I got to write. I got to write some of Jane's scenes, which was really nice, and work on that. And what was really great for me in that situation was working with Ken Branagh, because he didn't know this, but when I was in high school, I was in the Kenneth Branagh fan club. And
That's awesome.
I had a T-shirt and everything because I loved him. So that was a pretty cool. Thing. But the
full disclosure, I watched Hamlet in high school too with Kenneth Branagh, and I became a big Kenneth Branagh fan in high school too. So high five there.
High five! Seriously, I was just on my walls and in college. I had a big poster. I was a big Ken Branagh fan. But then I also did some work on a Black Widow treatment. But there just wasn't enough time to do 2 screenplays while I was there.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you grew up reading comics or things like that, but I'm getting the sense that you're definitely into it.
Oh, I'm definitely into it. I was more into the graphic novel side. Honestly,
Yeah.
That was kind of my bread and butter. But I became a big fan of the comic, of the MCU, especially after working at Marvel, because you have to be fluent in the connections between the characters and how everybody fits in. So I very quickly became a comics fan after working at Marvel.
So were there any influences outside of the comic series that went into writing Guardians of the Galaxy? I've seen a few allusions myself. I'm just curious to see if they're the same as what you were thinking while you were writing Guardians.
Well, there were more Star Wars references in my version than I think made it into the movie, but there's still some Star Wars references there for sure. I think there are some small references to 80s science fiction movies that I enjoyed. And I think there's the thing that's fun about Guardians is that it is very infused with 70s and 80s pop culture, because that was I think so many of the movies that both James and I loved from that time period, they're still in our psyche. They're still there. They're fun. They're poppy. They didn't take themselves that seriously. And I do think that in that regard, there definitely are some references in there.
People, including myself, have started making comparisons to Star Wars. I actually called this on a previous one of our podcasts, the Star Wars for Marvel's comics lines. And did any of that come into mind when obviously it did, when you're writing, or were you surprised by so many people starting to make those claims about this looks like either Firefly or Star Wars or anything like that?
Well, I think that it's a huge compliment to be compared to those movies. I think there's an homage element to them for sure. I fought pretty hard to try and get Star Wars toys be some of the toys that Peter Quill brings from Earth, because he brings a lot of these childhood beloved objects from Earth, and I wanted a Millennium Falcon so badly to be part of that, but it did not make the final production draft. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to have a big team-oriented space epic that doesn't have a little bit of Star Wars homage in it, and so it's better to just embrace it. However, I think the tone is much more tongue-in-cheek and irreverent and fun in that regard. It's never going to be Star Wars. Star Wars is its own thing. I mean, Star Wars is untouchable. I think Guardians is very much its own sort of genre of science fiction, but it has elements in that sense of a group bonding together and going off on this huge scale, getting involved in a large scale war. I think that those are some pretty hard to avoid tropes.
Yeah, so what do you think sets Guardians of the Galaxy apart from other Marvel movies like the Avengers, or like, just some of the single oriented movies like Thor and Iron Man and Captain America?
Well, it's interesting. With Avengers, we had a sense of who all the characters were, because they all had their own movies for the most part before they came together in Avengers. And with Guardians, we only had one shot to establish this team. So it really is an origin story of a team as opposed to one or two characters. So I think that definitely changes the way that you tell the story. And it's not just an introduction to a team. It's also an introduction to an entire new world. I mean, we're the first movie that's exploring cosmic Marvel, which is opening a door to an entirely different chapter of the MCU. And there's so many different races and wars and history that happens in this universe that this is just like it's a little sampler platter in some senses, because you get a sense of the scope of what's out there. So I think in that way it's very much different. I would also say that one of the things that Marvel does so well is take a genre that people have seen a million times, such as a superhero movie, and then they twist it and make it its own thing. For example, Captain America being the first period piece superhero movie. They do interesting things with it. And then Cap 2 is a sort of a 70s paranoid thriller, version of a superhero movie. And that I love. And I think they did something similar here in allowing Guardians to be very much its own thing. It's kind of standalone in some ways, but it's an action epic science fiction movie, but it's also very much a comedy. So I think that in that way, it's different from anything Marvel's done before.
I think this could be a gateway to more of the cosmic Marvel universe, something new for the Marvel cinematic universe.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it would be a shame to not explore the cosmic Marvel side of Marvel, because there are incredible characters, and Thanos and Infinity Gauntlet and all of these storylines are really cool. And I think that it's always been something that was on the to-do list for Marvel. And I think that Guardians was just a really great entryway into that world. I think that there are some really fantastic movies that could be coming down the line, hopefully. I mean, they have their slate figured out till 2019 for the most part. But you never know what version of Cosmic Marvel we'll be seeing next.
From the writing aspect, one of the things that I'm curious about is how much then of what you originally wrote, what turns out to be in the actual final movie, how much does it evolve and change over the course of the process?
Well, the 2.5 years that I worked on the project, we went through a lot of different permutations. So there were different combinations of team members. There were a lot more than just the 5 Guardians that you see in this movie that are part of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So I really tried out a whole bunch of different versions of the film. And so the one that you see is very much the one that Kevin Feige and myself and everybody really wanted to see made into the film. So the storyline and all the characters, that's very much the relationships, all of that is very much the same. And that took a lot of figuring out, a lot of crafting. And then one of the things that was so great about having James Gunn come on the film is that he is really, really great, with comedic timing, and his visual style is very specific and was a perfect match for what we were going for. And so he did a draft that really bumped up the humor and bumped up the visual spectacular elements. And I think that the movie has a lot of heart and a lot of fun comedy and also a lot of spectacular elements. And it's a result of several years worth of work. So I'm pretty happy with it.
As I've started to see more and more trailers and things coming out, I've gone back and I've read the 2008 Guardians of the Galaxy and things like that. And one of the things that I've noticed that you did here in the movie is you've basically changed some things around, like Star-Lord's origin story.
Yeah.
Definitely seems different here now. He's kidnapped. He's an outlaw. I was just wondering why the change there and, you know, how that came about.
Well, that was something that I did in my versions, because we played with different versions of Star-Lord's origin story, but it was kind of dated, and it was this idea of an astronaut who goes into space and, you know, has sort of an encounter with a celestial being is how the original Star-Lord's character becomes who he is. And I think we just wanted to do something a little different. We wanted it to be a bit more we wanted to have him, you know, I wanted to have him be somebody who was damaged and whose mother had died in sort of tragic circumstances and was kidnapped at a young enough age that he's completely comfortable in space. He's as fluent in everything that you need to know about space travel. He's not having that trope that we've seen a million times of an Earthman in space and having to adjust to the idea of there being aliens and all of that. You know, we wanted him to be perfectly comfortable, but have this tie to Earth that was really important to him. So for those reasons, we changed him to have been taken as a child. And we played with different versions of why he was taken and the role his father played in that kidnapping. But it's I think what it's ended up with is given us some freedom to have him be really confident, really in control of himself, like have his own, you know, relationships and sort of the community that he's made with the Ravagers, you know, in the modern day, or in the current day rather. And and I think the important part too is that allows him to be a bit of a scoundrel, because if he was an astronaut who, you know, kind of got thrown into this whole new world, it's a different story and it's a different character. So we wanted him to be sort of a rascal and, you know, a charming scoundrel kind of character. So I think that was the primary factor behind why I rebooted him to be this way.
And then when you decide to do something like that, does Marvel have to approve it? Do you have to say, hey, I'm thinking about rebooting Star-Lord. Are you guys cool with that? Or how does that work out?
Yeah, I mean, I was very much in conversation with the producers throughout all of my drafts, because I was on the lot for 2 years. So I was literally, you know, a few doors down from the producers. So we would meet regularly, and I would say, hey, what about this? And should we use this villain versus this villain? You know, what about this MacGuffin? The whole idea of using the stone was my thing of saying, hey, we should probably start using this, because we could build up towards eventually Infinity Gauntlet. You know, these are obviously things they had talked about as well. But one of the luxuries of being in the Marvel writing program was that I had the time to really try different versions of the story, and I was allowed to take risks, which was wonderful, because usually when you do a studio movie, you only get a couple of drafts to really prove yourself. And in this version, I could say, let's try this. If it doesn't work, we'll try this, you know, and that was fantastic. So
now, do you have a favorite character that you've written from the movie? Is there a favorite moment? Is there something in this movie that you're excited most for audiences to see, that you're like, oh, I can't wait till they see this or experience that?
You know, there's a lot. I've been saying one thing, and then seeing the movie again last night, I realized that the moment I got a little bit of the shivers, just because it's so well done, is my favorite character is Rocket. I think Rocket's fantastic and funny, and has a lot of gravitas, and the way that they animated him and the way that Bradley Cooper plays him is just so moving and funny. So they did very well with that casting. But I think my moment that I got last night, the shivers, was when Groot releases these spores, these glowing spores, and it's just this beautiful moment, and it's, you know, in 3D, and it's just gorgeous moment. And it turns out so much better than it did when I wrote it on the page. I was like, and he releases, you know, phosphorescent spores, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. And also, I was very pleased with I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a moment where Groot has a heroic moment, and I had seen earlier cuts where the CGI wasn't finished, and it didn't have quite as much emotional resonance as it did when I saw the finished product last night. And there's Groot's heroic moment is really moving, and I was really pleased with how that came out.
So what's next for Nicole Perlman? More Marvel, more Guardians, anything else beyond the MCU?
Right now I'm working on a project for Cirque du Soleil, which is kind of awesome and random. And then I'm doing a pilot for Skydance, which is an adaptation of a fantasy series, and I'm also doing a adaptation of a book for DreamWorks. That's a sort of dark dystopian science fiction novel called The Fire Sermon that comes out next year. And those are the three projects that are keeping me really busy right now. But I'll definitely, I would love to be involved with more Marvel projects in the future.
If they go on to if this becomes like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, the trilogy, do you think you'll be part of that series?
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I think that James has got a very good handle on it now. So I'm sure that for a sequel, he would probably be, fully in charge. But any sort of things down the line, I'm definitely, I feel very much part of the Marvel family, and I would be surprised if I don't work with them again at some point. I'm actually pretty interested in television now, so they're doing great things in that realm. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Where can people find you? Where can we direct them to find you online? Twitter, your website. Where can we send people?
Sure. My Twitter handle is Uncanny Girl, and that's one word, Uncanny Girl. It's a reference to the Uncanny Valley, which is a robotics term about creepy-looking robots. So that is definitely up my alley. I'm not great with the tweeting, but I'm working on it. I'm getting there. So yes, please follow me. I would love that, and I'll do my best to feed interesting tidbits. I'll be at Comic-Con also. I'm going to be on two science fiction panels. So if anyone's going to Comic-Con this week, come check them out.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to talk to you. I think we're all really looking forward to Guardians of the Galaxy when it comes out. So yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully maybe when, your next movie comes out, we'll get together again and we'll talk about that.
That would be wonderful. Thanks so much, Jason and Jacob.
Thanks,
all right,
Nicole.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Take care. You too. Bye.
All right. Big thanks once again to Nicole Perlman, the writer of the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy. Find her on Twitter at Uncanny Girl. Great stuff out of her. I think we learned a lot of cool little tidbits about the movie, about the writing process. What do you think?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from all this is that we were both Kenneth Branagh nerds in high school.
Yes, you are.
And it just so happened that one of us did absolutely nothing with that, and the other one actually got to write scenes for Thor with Kenneth Branagh, and that's so cool. So I'm super jealous. That she's just a fantastic lady. You just kind of tell that all the success that she's getting now, and I think will get with this Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It's just going to open up a bunch of doors for her, and I'm so happy for her. And it's really cool to hear all about the little homages that she tried to throw in from other 80s sci-fi stuff. I think all of it's great, and it's really showing up in the trailers, and I'm so excited to see the movie. I'm kind of mad I haven't seen it yet, but I've watched the trailers like 300 times, so I'm very excited to see it.
Yeah, I hear you. I actually loved also what she said about how she slipped in Star Wars references, and there were more in her original screenplay that made it in the movie, and her other sci-fi references she put in there, and the 80s stuff. I absolutely love all that. So that was really, really cool. It was also really cool what she said at the beginning about wanting to do this sort of big popcorn action adventure movie. And because there aren't a lot of other women out there doing it, I think it really puts her in a good place that, other women writers can say, I want to do that too.
Well, and what she said about writing the scenes of Jane and Thor for Natalie Portman, I really would like, and it's probably because a lot of the men don't know how to relate to how a female would react in those situations or behave in certain situations. I'm just going to throw it out there. Nicole, I would love for you to write a Miss Marvel movie. Hopefully that's in the works. What else was interesting was she was saying how they brought in a bunch of people to work on these kind of little known properties, and she chose Guardians of the Galaxy. And apparently there's other properties that were being worked on at the time. And, there's Miss Marvel, there's new female Thor maybe in the future, since she has some experience with that realm. If they do decide to go that route in the distant future in the MCU. But for the time being, Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel, whichever iteration of that character that you want to get, the Carol Danvers character, I would love for her to write a treatment for that character. And
You're
I would
a big
love
fan.
for her. Yes. And I would love for her to write a treatment. Well, just the dialogue from the trailers alone just shows you how smart the writing for this movie is and how funny it is and how natural it is. The 12% of a plan scene. You have 12% of a plan. And then Rocket just starts busting out laughing. And it's a bomb. It's a bomb. I was going to put it in a box. The writing is just so funny just from the trailers alone that I'm so jazzed to see the movie. I think that type of smart writing could really benefit the first, I'm going to put it out there, the first really good female-led superhero movie. Whether that be Miss Marvel, whether that be Storm with Candace McClure. What's up, buddy?
We are starting the Candace McClure for Storm campaign. So
I know that's not Disney and Marvel, but it's still the Marvel universe.
Right.
So if they were to do a Storm standalone movie or something like that, starring friend of mine and friend of the show, Candace McClure, it would be great if Nicole got in on that too, because I think she really understands the characters and really loves the universes, and she clearly puts in the work, and it's just such a smart writer that I'd love to see her do more work in the future.
yeah, definitely. Most definitely. So again, great interview. She was super great to talk to. Awesome person. So again, Nicole, thank you. Thank you very much for coming on with us. We really appreciate the time. And so you guys out there, if you have any comments on the interview that you'd like to chime in, don't forget we are on social media at Mach 5 Network, both Facebook and Twitter. I'm on Twitter at the Jason Z. Hit me up, hit the show up. Let us know what you think. Tell us how pumped you are for Guardians of the Galaxy. I know we're incredibly excited for it. I cannot wait for the release date. And I really want to see it I'm not a big 3D guy. I really want to see it in 3D now after she talked about some of the visuals in 3D. And I'm really excited for Groot's big heroic moment now, too. I can't wait to see how that plays out. I think I'm just like 3 times as excited as I was going in. So that makes this even better.
Maybe I'm a simple man. I just want to see Rocket scratch his balls. That's all.
Hey, whatever does it for you.
Adjust his junk. I mean, the fact that a raccoon's doing that is just flat out hilarious to me. But yeah, Rocket seems like I bought a Rocket bobblehead today.
Nice.
And Rocket just seems like such a cool character. I'm getting so jazzed to see this movie and so jazzed to see this character who I originally thought was like kind of dumb. And now I see why so many people love him.
That's awesome. All right. So on that note, that's going to do it for this week's picture show interview conversation with Nicole Perlman of Guardians of the Galaxy. Stay tuned for more movie talk where we discuss movies and movie news, coming attractions, and all that good stuff. We will talk to you guys next week. See ya. Take care.
Peace out.
This has been a Mach 5 Network production. Be sure to subscribe to our shows on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Mach 5 Network. Follow us on Twitter at Mach 5 Network and email us at mach5network@gmail.com. Until next week, I'm your announcer, Crown Jules, logging off.